Welcome back to the Bearded Console Gamer, and today, my friends, I'm going to be taking you through everything that we know about the upcoming PS5 Death Stranding Director's Cut, which is due to come out on September 24th later this year. We'll be talking graphics options, quality of life improvements, pricing, and basically covering all the new pieces of gear and game modes coming to this Ultimate Edition of Hideo Kojima's masterpiece of mindfuckery. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, or I will infiltrate the highest levels of Kojima Productions and straight up inception the big man himself to ensure that the next game to issue forth from his fabled mind is a generic battle royale shooter awash with microtransactions and loot boxes. Now, Death Stranding is an incredibly polarizing video game which, upon first releasing in November 2019, split the PlayStation player base into two distinct groups. On one hand, you had the extremely attractive, ultra-high IQ genii of the PlayStation community who immediately recognized Death Stranding's melancholy greatness for what it was. But on the other hand, you had a group of unwashed inbreds who did not like the game and whose opinions are wrong. Guess which group I belong to? In all seriousness, Death Stranding is a Kojima game in which you walk around a stunningly realized landscape delivering increasingly heavy packages to increasingly far away people. And all of this walking and delivering occurs against the backdrop of a narrative that philosophically explores mass extinction events, the afterlife, dead but also not dead babies, ethereal beaches, and humanity's innate need to be connected to one another. It had a crazy, daring design that harbored a plot with so many twists that it would immediately make M. Night Shyamalan catastrophically shit his pants in ecstasy the moment that he came into contact with a copy. It was, in short, a Kojima game, and it was not for everyone. But my god, it was for me. I have sunk untold hours into this game, enjoying the world, unraveling the narrative, building roads, and just connecting with other players that I will never see or hear from in the real. During the pandemic, when the government literally told me that I was not allowed to leave my home, I survived by taking Norman Reedus on regular walks through post-apocalyptic America. Also, I watched him shower and poop, which was new for me but opened a lot of doors in my private life. In short, I let Death Stranding into my life and allowed Hideo Kojima's melancholy vision to wash over me like the waters of a very confusing bath. So naturally, when Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding Director's Cut was revealed during the Summer Games Fest, I was overjoyed. And now I'm going to share that overjoyedness with you by revealing everything that we know about this new edition of the game to date. Now, the initial reveal trailer for the Director's Cut was predictably weird AF and contained a whole lot of Metal Gear references, from the way that the coffin room was laid out, which was very reminiscent of the original Metal Gear, to the lens flare, and even in the way that Sam played around with those cardboard boxes. But weirdness aside, it gave us some significant hints as to what we can expect from the added content that'll come with the Director's Cut. For example, we now know that there are likely to be combat missions that take place inside, and that will feature Sam taking on / sneaking around soldiers from the Homo Demons terrorist group, who, spoiler alert, may be hoarding dead bodies with the goal of having them necrotize and then delivering them to population centers in order to trigger a devastating void out, which, if you haven't played Death Stranding, is the equivalent to a spiritual nuclear bomb that can level a whole city. And you can bet your sweaty ass that the Metal Gear cardboard box will be featured as a usable piece of equipment during these missions. Now, since that initial reveal, we've been treated to a smorgasbord of information on exactly what the Death Stranding Director's Cut is gonna contain, and that came in the form of a blog post, a full-length trailer, and also a Q&A with Kojima Productions' head of publishing, Jay Bohr. So let's get into the fresh content that'll be coming with the PS5 update, and it's important to note that this isn't simply material that was cut from the game prior to launch. In the Q&A, Jay Bohr specifically pointed out that nothing had been held back at all from the original release of the game, and that the Death Stranding that we've come to know and love is indeed the full realization of Hideo Kojima's vision. In fact, Hideo Kojima disliked the Director's Cut label that was given to the new version of the game so much that he took to Twitter to say, "A Director's Cut in a movie is an additional edit to a shortened version that was either released reluctantly because the director didn't have the time or right to edit it, or because the running time had to be shortened." In the game, it is not what was cut, but what was additionally produced that was included. So in my opinion, I don't like to call it a director's cut. Regardless of the name, the launch of the PS5 gave Hideo a chance to improve upon and extend his vision. But rather than simply upping the graphical fidelity and performance of the game, the good folks over at Kojima Productions decided to create a whole new raft of content from scratch that would give gamers an even better experience. And that leads us to arguably the quirkiest of the new content additions, the Fragile Racetrack. This new mode lets you race around a pre-designed set of courses in vehicles from the original Death Stranding that you've come to know and love, such as the long-range truck and the reverse trike, along with a brand new vehicle known simply as the Roadster. So that's a super weird piece of content that they've decided to shoehorn in there, but you know what? I'm here for it. The director's cut will also see the introduction of the firing range, which, as the name suggests, will see Sam shoot all of his new shiny weapons at dummy targets in what appears to be a Bridges training facility before heading out and firing those bad boys at flesh and blood targets in the wild. There's also said to be a slew of new side and story missions that'll further expand the narrative and lore of Death Stranding, and this is of course the content that I'm personally the most excited for. Now, Kojima Productions haven't given us any details yet on what's going to be covered in the extra quests, but we can see from the pre-order trailer that at least one of the missions is likely to delve further into the origin of the Bridge Babies, which is the name given to the tank kids that accompany some porters and allow them to perceive the ethereal spirits that cling to the world of the living. And we know this because in a brief scene in the trailer, we can see a number of white BB artificial wombs buried in the dirt with the word prototype printed across them. And behind those are some larger medical beds that look like the type used to house the brain-dead mothers who birthed the BBs and who were subsequently kept alive in a vegetative state for science. And without getting too spoilery, I'll bet you all the money in my pockets that one of these missions is going to see Sam visit the room that was the setting for the flashbacks that Sam and BB experienced throughout the game, centering on Mads Mikkelsen's character, his wife, and the BB who you carry throughout the game. And we're probably also going to be getting further details on Fragile's backstory, as in this scene we see a picture of a grey-haired woman standing next to a man in a leather jacket sporting a Fragile Express logo. So I'm guessing that this guy is Fragile's father, but I have no idea what's going on with the older lady and the kid and this graveyard for that matter. So give me your thoughts in the comment section below, because I'm sure the answers to these questions are hidden somewhere in the lore of the game. According to Bohr, all of this new content is going to be threaded seamlessly throughout the original game and will make itself known as the player progresses through the story and explores the expansive world of Death Stranding. But moving on, the game is also said to benefit from a range of new vehicles, aesthetic gear, and equipment options for Sam. One such piece of equipment that can be placed by Sam presumably using a PCC is the cargo catapult, which will allow Norman Reedus to safely huck his precious load across very long distances. And whilst it looks like the cargo is going to be placed in a protective casing prior to being launched from the handy howitzer, I'm guessing that you won't be able to use it for everything. For example, you're probably not going to want to load fragile cargo in this bad boy, or any delivery orders like the infamous pizza, which need to be kept upright at all times. We're also going to be getting a support exoskeleton and a buddy bot, which is essentially the same as the mechanical helper that you could send on automated deliveries in the regular game, but this time it's going to be traveling by your side and you'll even be able to ride on top of it. However, it looks like players shouldn't rely too heavily on the buddy bot, as without arms, it's going to be unable to navigate terrain that would be easily climbable by Sam with the help of a trusty ladder. Meanwhile, players who, like me, love going everywhere on their trusty bike are going to be given a handy new tool with the update in the form of a jump ramp, which again, as the name implies, can be set up using a PCC builder and then used as a platform to gain some extra air to cross those troublesome canyons. There's also going to be some UI improvements coming with the new version of the game and new online features, including a competitive leaderboard and something called friend play, which we don't know anything about at this moment, but we've been promised some new information soon. Beyond that, Kojima Productions has promised us a revamped and improved close combat system, along with a range of new weapons for Sam to employ when dealing with the fleshy things unfortunate enough to get in his way. The director's cut is also going to be making use of the advanced haptic capabilities of the PS5's DualSense controller to bring players closer to the game. For example, walking over rough terrain could elicit a gentle rumble from the controller, and you can be sure that you're going to feel a jolt if Sam and BB take a fall. And we can pretty much say for sure that the DualSense's adaptive trigger resistance capabilities is going to be integrated heavily into the backpack balancing mechanic. So if I were you, I'd start working out those index fingers now. In terms of performance, we can expect some seriously reduced load times courtesy of the PS5's ultra-fast SSD, and in terms of graphics, we've got two video modes on offer. The first is a performance mode, which will run at a full 60 frames per second and feature upscaled 4K graphics with ultra-wide monitor and HDR support. Meanwhile, the second is a fidelity mode, which will run the game with ultra-wide and HDR, but this time in 4K native. And whilst it isn't specifically stated, this mode is almost certainly going to run at 30 frames per second at launch. And importantly, it was also announced in the PlayStation blog post that gamers who have a PS4 Death Stranding save will be able to transfer it over to the PS5 Director's Cut hassle-free. So don't feel like you need to wait to grind away on that platinum until September. Now let's get into exactly how much this is going to cost you, and the good news is that if you already own a digital edition of the PS4 Death Stranding game, then it's only going to cost you a pathetic $10 to upgrade. However, if you are a living, breathing pile of unfortunate like me, who was stupid enough to loyally support PlayStation and the studio at launch by buying the game physically, well my friend, you are f***ed. You and I are going to have to pay the full retail price of $49.99 American cents for the Director's Cut edition. And I swear to God, I am getting sick and tired of PlayStation punishing loyal fans for buying physical copies of their games at launch. Seriously, what is to stop PlayStation putting a unique identifier code in each physical copy of its first-party games that would entitle the bearer to the cheaper upgrade cost for the Ultimate Edition / Director's Cut of that game when it inevitably releases a year or two after launch? And on that note, I'm going to leave it for today. Let me know what you thought about the Death Stranding Director's Cut upgrades and pricing in the comments section below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe and to hit that notifications bell to keep it here for all the biggest news and updates from around the video gaming world.